everybody to my Harry Potter series of reviews. We are nearly there at the end of this fantastic road to Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald. I've had so many fantastic guests. I'm using the word fantastic way too much so far, and I have yet another fantastic person here. It's my brother from another mother. It's Mr. Deadpool Zach Pope.
What's going on, guys? Ren, thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you. I love being on your reviews. That Star Wars review collab we did, I think last year, was probably hands down one of my favorite collabs we've ever done. I'm excited to be talking about my second favorite Harry Potter film of all time. That is The Half-Blood Prince, man.
Thank you, Zach, for being here. It's my honor to have you. And now that you mention it, I think that Star Wars review might have been around a year ago, exactly around this week, because I was reviewing them week to week until The Last Jedi, which we don't want to get comments about that on this review. So let's get started. So this is your second favorite Harry Potter film. How much pressure do you usually feel given that this film is very mixed between fans?
So a lot of it depends who I'm talking to. So I've read a majority of the books. I did not read 5 and up. I'll be honest on that. I got out of some phase for some reason where I just did not finish them. And I do plan on one day going back and rereading them all, but the fans that I get crap about this for is the ones who are the fans of the book. And I totally wholeheartedly get it. They explain the differences. They tell me what they wish they would have seen in the movie. And I get it. Because I think if I was more invested in the books, I maybe would drop this a bit. But the thing I love about this movie is, one, that emotional ending. It just gets me every time. And it's one of the Harry Potter movies that I think Prisoner Azkaban got us to that dark place. But I feel like 4 and 5, they were dark, but they weren't as dark. This is definitely, for me, the darkest Harry Potter film. It goes dark. It tells us more about Dumbledore. You get to learn more about Voldemort in a sense. I was about to say in a riddle. I mean, that would make sense, but I just love the story that they tell and that the director crafted in here. It's so seamless, and I'm blown away every time I watch this movie. Because it's a slow burn, but for some reason these slow burn stories work more for me.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely get to that tragic ending, but I think you hit the nail on the head there with David Yates' craft and how dark this film gets. Because most of these Harry Potter films start with scenes in the Muggle world, and it's usually the whimsical part even when the rest of the film is dark. But in this film we have Harry trying to get a date, but you already feel this tension, you already see the lighting, the cinematography is so dark, you already feel eerie about what's about to happen. And here comes Dumbledore and cock blocks Harry and takes him away because there's some urgent shit that they need to take care of.
The opening, I think, is one of the best openings to any Harry Potter film, in my opinion. And again, you get to see a little bit more of Harry, and it's funny to see him flirting with this girl, and I'm kind of like, yeah, Harry, get it! Get it in there! Come on, man! And then Dumbledore comes strolling in. He's like, make sure to strap a condom on. Oh, yeah, we're going back to Hogwarts right now. It just works. Because they've built this relationship up with Dumbledore so well through all the movies that when it hits this critical point in their relationship, it's firing on all cylinders. There is one scene, though, in this movie that we'll get to eventually. It's towards the back half. It's in the cave. I don't know how much I love about that scene. That's the one scene I'm a little iffy on. But I just totally love what David Yates did with this. With the beginning, to the middle, to the ending. It just builds that tension that you mentioned, that it's just constant tension, just pushing and breathing down your throat, where you really do feel like you are in Harry's shoes within this movie.
Oh, for sure. I think one of the things he does really well is that almost like magic doesn't feel that magical at all right now. It feels very scary, and usually Harry, even in the last film when he sees the house expanding to reveal the Order of the Phoenix, he has this like look of awe and this feeling of whimsicality in him. But in this film, whenever something already goes wrong, he's already ready for it in a sense. He's already way too used to the fact that things are going down to shit in his life and nothing goes right for him.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the whole point of his life. His family's dead, his friends are fadoodling over here, and he's the chosen one. That's what this film gets to is, in a sense, Harry Potter, or Potter himself, he has been selected to be this chosen one. It's kind of all led up to this. But does Harry himself actually believe in this? He doesn't believe in it till, I'm assuming to ruin spoilers. I hope so. I hope you've seen this movie. He figures out he's the chosen one by the end of this movie. And he believes that he is. And I think that's something that just goes so deeply into this movie, that Dumbledore really pushed him to there and showed him, you really are the chosen one, man. You are the one that's chosen to take down Voldemort. Which, again, I think this film establishes something so wonderful within the next Deathly Hallows. A lot of people think this film is one of those films like, oh, it's just preparing for the next one. But I would go as far to say no. This is a totally separate story on its own that you do need. And if we're talking about any film that's setting up for another one, that's Deathly Hallows Part 1, which is probably one of my least favorite Harry Potter films, just being honest. But Half-Blood Prince just does that so well. And again, the most intriguing thing of this film is Voldemort's backstory. That, to me, that is the most intriguing part of the whole film. And I love when you get to know more about a villain.
Oh yeah, this film definitely dives deep into it, literally, because people dive into memories. But it's also a film that dives deep into Dumbledore. I like that this film gives us a not-so-shining light into Dumbledore and who he is, because, yes, he doesn't have much of a choice. Yes, things need to be taken care of urgently, but with the recruiting of Slughorn, with the approximation of Harry to Slughorn, and with the trust that Dumbledore enlists in Harry to gain from Slughorn, or however he says the name, I don't even know if I'm saying it right. But for every intents and purposes, Dumbledore in this film is using Harry as a means to an end.
Yeah, and it just goes further from there. And I love how it starts developing other characters. Mostly this is Harry, Dumbledore, and Voldemort's story overall, but one of the things that just totally works for me is that these subtle little subplots that it has with the other teachers, with, might I say, I love Bellatrix, or how do you say her name? Helena Bonham Carter's character. Okay, to be honest, if I was in the wizarding world of Harry Potter, I would have either been Sirius Black, or I would have been Bellatrix, to be honest with you.
Because of what she said, because there's so much character stuff, even for supporting characters that don't necessarily share many scenes in the spotlight. This is a very slow-paced film. It's a film very driven by mystery and intrigue and dialogue, and again, character development. It almost feels like a noir-esque film in the Harry Potter world, which, to me at least, is really good, because Order of the Phoenix was just an adrenaline rush, a punch to the gut, especially with that ending. Not that this ending isn't a punch to the gut, it is, but throughout the film, it just allows you to soak in that tension that we already mentioned.
Yeah, and one of the scariest, most tension-filled moments in here is kind of like an M. Night Shyamalan film, is the Death Eaters in the field. That scene is just beautifully executed. And I think it's one of the best scenes in actually the whole Harry Potter franchise. It's easily, I think, the scariest one. And, I mean, when I was a kid, when you see the Death Eaters on the train for the first time, that was pretty terrifying too. But this is just a scene that totally works in its own, and it carries on that tension, and it just keeps building and building and building and building for this movie. And another one of the big relationships that Harry has in here is Ginny Weasley. It starts to form that a little bit more, which in some of the other movies, I feel like that was a little bit shoe-in of what they're kind of go for, and I feel like this film establishes them just a bit more, that when we do figure out where this relationship is going in the next film, this is the film that takes it in the right manner. It's a long film that's a slow burn, but at no point in time am I ever checking the time. It's just going and going, and it's compacted, and it's just, a lot of this is due to the editing. And a lot of it's due to the directing and the script. It is just, again, I think it's one of the best Harry Potter films for that manner.
No, it's definitely a film that allows you to soak in just everything. And what you mentioned about Harry and Ginny, I will not address right now because that is one of my weak points. I'll just say that and I'll address them in a little bit. But I love every single relationship that we do get to explore here. And again, so much of it is Dumbledore and Harry. I would like you now to introduce us to the cave scene and why they go there, because I understand that that is the one scene that might not work for you as well.
So it doesn't work. Okay, so this cave scene, in a sense, I always get confused on it. I understand what's going on, and I get it. Like, it's the one scene, like I said, this film rushes pretty fast through. And it doesn't feel like it's slow. It's the one scene that does feel slow to me. It's the one scene that does drag for me in a sense because, like, it's not scary to me. It just seems a little bit cheesy. I don't know if that's how it is in the books necessarily. I don't know if it's a little bit better portrayed, but it's the one scene in the film that just felt off to me. It's not like I hate the scene. It's not like I watch it and I'm like, damn, I have to fast forward through it. No, it's an essential scene of the movie. I just feel like there was something else you could have done to it. But again, I don't know what exactly I would have changed personally.
No, I definitely get what your problem with the scene is, because I definitely see your points. To me, I don't know, man, it just feels straight out of a horror film. And again, because I like what they do with Dumbledore and Harry in this film so much, to me, seeing a very weakened and vulnerable and honestly desperate Dumbledore, it just enriches the character so freaking much. It's a scene that I will agree that as soon as the scene starts, they show up there in front of the cave. I'm like, okay, number one, why are you going there? And it felt really abrupt. And number two, why didn't they just go into the cave instead of teleporting into that rock in the middle of the ocean?
You know what? Okay, like you putting it that way, it kind of makes me appreciate the scene a little bit more, but I have that issue. Why are they there? How did they get there? Like, why did they do this? Why did they do that? And there's a couple scenes in there where it's like, okay, this is like already a 2.5 hour film. I can get it. You don't want to split this movie in two like you did with Deathly Hallows, and I can get it that you don't want to cut out too many essential things, because again, there's nothing else I would have cut out in this film. But when Harry Potter is one of the best franchises, like money-making franchises in the world, you think Warner Brothers would have been like, it's all right, add another 10-minute scene to that. I'm curious on that. Maybe there is a deleted scene out there that you and me just don't know personally, and maybe it explains this, but I'm with you. You know what? You saying that, I'm a little bit more appreciative of that, and seeing a withered down old Dumbledore, especially with where we get to the ending on this. And but I get a little bit confused when we get there, and I'm kind of like, what's going on? I feel like I missed a step.
Yeah, we are going to talk about that ending. But before we get to that, we need to set up what eventually leads to that ending, and that is that Harry eventually does get the trust of Slughorn, and he gives him the memory of Tom Riddle, and we find out about the Horcruxes. And to me, this just beautifully sets up the next movies, and it also explains a lot of the little seeds that have been planted so far. I usually say this, that a sequel to any film is by nature the product of something from the previous film. In a world where we live with so many disposable sequels like Jurassic World Shitty Kingdom, having this film setting up the Horcruxes so beautifully into what two movies depend more on the Horcruxes, it's really, really well done. Not only is it an emotional scene when Slughorn does give the memory to Harry, but it also explains so much just with the visuals and telling the story of Tom Riddle, of Voldemort, like you said.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people also get mixed on this film because it in a sense, people can make the argument that it is very exposition heavy, but I don't. I think it's needed. It's not just that typical exposition that you get in a movie where it's like, oh yeah, you need to know this, and that to get to the next thing, but it's all interesting, and it's all complicated, and not convoluted complicated, but very intriguing complicated. And I love that. Again, the Horcruxes are like one of the most interesting parts of the Harry Potter lore, to be honest. And just that last memory scene, it's haunting, it's chilling, and I remember it gave me nightmares.
I'm not sure from that scene, but I definitely got some nightmares from some Harry Potter scenes. Especially this last one, because, again, we get so much character stuff, including Draco in this film. Draco from the beginning, when they get to Hogwarts and he finds out Harry in the Cloak of Invisibility and he takes him down. From the very beginning, when I first watched this film, Draco's spotlight, the spotlight they have so much on him throughout the film, and Snape's involvement with Draco's story in this film, it felt really odd. Especially because Draco was barely in Goblet of Fire, because Draco was played for comedy in Order of the Phoenix, and now he's so dark, he seems so evil, he has so much influence from Voldemort and so much involvement in Voldemort's plan. When he gets to that point where he has to kill Dumbledore and he's not able to do it, I think, again, it enriches the character so much. And in comes Snape, who we trust, and he says everything is going to be okay, but it doesn't really feel like it's going to be okay, does it, Zach?
No, not at all. The slow-mo, the score, everything in this last scene is devastating. And again, understand this. Like, coming from someone who, again, didn't finish reading the books, just watched these films for the first time a couple years back. I didn't know fucking Dumbledore died! What the fuck? Like, no one had spoiled that for me at that point in time. And I was just jaw dropped. Like, this is the second saddest death, or the third saddest death in Harry Potter. Dobby, Sirius, and this. Spoilers! Sorry if you didn't see any of these movies. If you didn't, again, it's my, like, if I would have been spoiled, I can't get mad about it, because I'm that idiot that didn't see these films yet till now. Well, till a couple years back. But I bawled like a bitch. I bawled like a bitch when he died. And just, I think this is also a thing where we see little Malfoy Draco being a little bitch half the time in the series, but this is a movie where you do take him a little bit more serious. And seeing Snape, I think Snape is easily my favorite character besides Sirius in the whole Harry Potter lore. And I think, rest in peace, Alan Rickman. And a lot of that goes to how the character's portrayed and how the character's played off. But you can see that, like, he has so much darkness in him, but there's also there's a little bit of light to him, too. And seeing what he does for Malfoy in this instance, because, I mean, Malfoy was the one that's supposed to kill him. You know, we both know this. Like, Malfoy was supposed to kill Dumbledore, and he doesn't. And it just goes from there. Man, I'm trying not to cry right now. Like, shit.
There's always one scene in each Harry Potter film that gets me, and Dumbledore's death in here is certainly one. Not only because, for the first time I watched these films, I wouldn't say at this point that Snape was my favorite character. And from this moment on, when I first watched this film, I fucking hated Snape. Snape's gotta die, that's what I said at this point, as soon as it happened. And again, like you said, there's no fucking way they killed Dumbledore. And from the moment he falls, from the moment they go down there and look at his body and then just point the wands to the air, and it's a beautiful moment, and they light up the sky literally to remember Dumbledore. It's a beautiful moment visually, but it feels like hope is lost. There's no fucking way Harry Potter or the good guys are going to win. And it already feels like Voldemort won, because he got Snape. He got freaking Snape on his side. What else is there to do? It feels, I'm going to say in the best way possible, it feels like such a hollow moment for us since we are on Harry's side.
It leads into an underdog story in a sense in the next film where they are getting, like, pounded. And Deathly Hallows Part 1, like, I know we're not talking about that, but I mean, it leads into that opening scene of them all flying to get Harry there safe. And this film establishes so much into the world. And yeah, there's, again, people can call it a setup film, but it's not just a setup film. It's a unique, it's a chilling, it's a haunting and special movie that is essential into the Harry Potter universe. I love Half-Blood Prince. I think it's just beautifully told and executed. I think David Yates, I think this is honestly his peak of directing anything in the wizarding world. Don't get me wrong, Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2. Part 1 I have issues with, but Part 2 I think's freaking amazing. I just think he's done a great job, and I think personally this is where he should have stopped. I think he shouldn't even be directing the Fantastic Beasts anymore, but that's a different debate for a different time.
What you said about David Yates, it's his craft, it's his work in a previous film and into this film that works so well. It's such a huge punch to the gut. It's such a huge blow to Hogwarts, to us, who again are on Harry's side. And I love that the ending of this film is basically characters having a conversation about, well, everything is fucked. We cannot just hide away, because the early films of Harry Potter is just, everything ends well for now. He goes home, he comes back, everything goes to shit, he goes home, he comes back, blah, blah. The last two movies, whenever it ends, it feels like, okay, everything is going to shit right now, but we know where to keep Harry safe. But the ending of this film is characters facing the fact that they're not safe. They just have to run. They gotta run, and they gotta find these Horcruxes and take care of things, because there's no more hiding.
You can't go into hiding at this point in time. You have to establish it. And It's just, this film does it so well. It just mesmerizes me in so many different ways, and I find this film to be totally underrated when people talk about Harry Potter movies. People don't talk about Half-Blood Prince again. I personally, the most overrated Harry Potter film was Order of the Phoenix. Just, I'll say it. It's the most overrated Harry Potter film in my opinion, but I think this film it's perfect. It's slide away the little cave scene. It's a perfect film. Almost, like, near perfect.
Okay, Zach, so I'm going to let you speak about maybe any issues you have before I go on to talk about them, because I clearly have a few more issues than you, at least.
I think the film could have been longer, personally. I think there are a couple scenes in here where it does feel like stuff is missing. We mentioned the cave. That's a big issue. And I do think there are a couple issues with some of the side characters. I think they could have been established a little bit more. I don't know if it's just because maybe it was other films that they should have been established more in and whatnot. But it's just, the film in itself, I think, needed to be longer. I really do think it needed to be longer. I'm not saying, like, cut it into 2 movies like they did with Deathly Hallows. But for a 2.5 hour runtime movie, I think he could have added 20 minutes. I would have been perfectly fine sitting through there. It's the Harry Potter. I mean, people sit through Lord of the Rings movies that are pretty much 3 hours long or more, and it's Harry Potter. I mean, come on now. Like, we would all sit through... If Deathly Hallows was only 1 part, I think it could have been, and it was only 3.5 hours, I'd be fine with it. And same thing goes for this film. I think it should have been that, and I get it. Like, it's hard to push a film out that's long to keep people's attention, but I think for my attention span it would have, and sometimes my attention span can go pretty dive down. I love the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Those are pretty damn long. My attention span, if those can last during theirs, it can definitely last during a Harry Potter movie.
Pirates of the Caribbean. I only like the first one and the last one, so I'm in the minority, definitely. But yeah, so issues. This film is still during Harry's and his colleagues' puberty. And while Goblet of Fire and while Order of the Phoenix had those little sprinkles of dealing with that in a comedic sense, I don't really think this movie does it well. It certainly deals with the puberty aspect in a comedic sense, but I don't think the comedy hit it really hard for me in this one. Also, sometimes how quirky Slughorn is, it really would have benefited the scenes, especially the one where he gives the truth to Harry, that he would have been a little more traumatized and not just playing it like it was nothing just for his mental sanity. I also found the death of Harrogog scene absolutely disposable. I didn't even mention him in my Chamber of Secrets review, and he was really good in that, but there's just one scene where we cut to that, and it's Harry, Slughorn, and Hagrid just looking at Aragorn, and he's dead. And it's not even the same freaking spider. He's so freaking small in this scene.
I can see where your issues are with those. Maybe it's just because I personally wasn't paying attention to that more. I felt like, oh yeah, it's just side stuff. But again, I think that goes into issues that it feels like stuff's cut out. It really does feel like stuff is missing overall from this movie. And it's not like abruptly like Suicide Squad where it's like chop this, chop that fucking thing, chop that thing. No, it's not like that, but there are apparent things that are missing. And I mean, if you talk to anyone who's a fan of the book. So book fans are probably going to comment on this, well, in the book, this is what happened. I get it. But this is a movie. We're talking about the movie.
So yeah, in final thoughts, this movie does have issues. The comedy that worked in previous movies doesn't work for me, but I think it's a really mature film. It deals with darkness really well. It's eventful, and it's very different looking at it. Again, it feels like a very noir-esque film. I think it has loads of character-driven moments, almost like absolutely everything that happens in this film is driven by characters' choices and decisions, words and actions. I think this is a really good film. I think it is underrated by the majority of fans. It's not one of my top 3. I think Order of the Phoenix, for instance, is better. I'm sorry, Zach. But I'm going to give Harry Potter and Half-Blood Prince a B+.
Well, Ren, I'll raise you on B+ and shoot it right up to an A-. I think this film is a little bit near perfection. I think it's good. It's not a masterpiece. The masterpiece in here is Prisoner of Azkaban. I'm just saying. I find this film to be great. I think it's unique. Its slow pace works for it, and I look forward to every time I rewatch all the films, and that's the film that comes up. That's the one I look. And Order of the Phoenix is the one that I'm like, ugh, gotta go through this one with that fat bitch who just is a bitch. Who just, Fuck you. I don't even remember her name. What is it? Fucking Umbridge? Is that her name? Umbridge, yeah. Like, who fucking likes Umbridge? No one does, so.
We are done with Half-Blood Prince. I got 2 more movies to go, but Zach, let the beautiful people know where they can find your beautiful face, you beautiful bastard.
Well, you guys can find me over at Zach Pope Reviews, at Sandwich John Films as well, and on the Phoenix Film Critics Society. This is Stormbreaker, my baby, and you guys can find us over here on this YouTube channel doing movie reviews like Ren, talking with him, doing podcasts with Cody Curtis, and maybe even Ren joins us in to talk about Bohemian Rhapsody, or of course, like again, I do movie reviews, so that's what we're gonna do over here. I have tons of things coming up soon. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and thank you so much for having me, Ren. It's always a blast talking to you, dude. We need to do definitely some more collabs. Maybe we'll do a Last Jedi one.
Yes, we need to do the Last Jedi one, because we got pounded on the internet, everybody, last year. So we need to definitely do a collab praising this film, because it's awesome. Zach, thank you for being here, for joining me once again. Maybe in the next year, we'll review whatever sequel comes out to a famous franchise. Maybe it's Fantastic Beasts 3, who knows. Thank you guys for watching this review. Go follow Zach. I'll have all these links in the description below, just like I do every time with my guests. And I'll have 2 more Harry Potter reviews before I see Fantastic Beasts on the 14th with Casey Cosley and with Ryan O'Toole for Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2 respectively. And so until those reviews, stay beautiful, stay geeky, and if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button, click the bell, so you can be geeky united!